and welcome to another Facebook Live with me, Ryan Branch, and it's really nice for you guys to join me today. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time. I want to dive right in. What is the difference between focus and force? Because this conversation really is something that is super important when it comes to how we apply ourselves to our tasks and our goals throughout the day. Because if we don't notice the difference, then we can very easily slip into one or the other. When we intend to be focused, we end up being forced. So I'll tell you a little bit about how this realization popped up for me. And so basically what happened was I was in a conversation with my client, and he was telling me about how he goes about his day. He first came to me about a couple of months back, and he's trying to find ways to improve his sales. And what I learned was that he was essentially avoiding having conversations with people because he wasn't enjoying the conversations anymore. He was avoiding having sales calls because he was just feeling super tense and under pressure. And when he did get on a call, his voice would get all croaky, and he'd be stuttering and stammering and not really expressing himself very well at all. And you know, give me a one in the comments if you guys have ever experienced anything like this, where you if it's a sales call, or even if it's just calling on somebody for something that is important to you. You know, that nervousness that we get just before making one of those calls, it can really get in the way of taking action, especially when that's your job. So basically what happened was, as we began to look a little bit closer, he told me about how he goes about conducting his day. And what he said was that he likes to essentially go into the day feeling really focused. And it's all about focus, and it's all about being really focused on what it is that I'm doing that day. And as he was sharing with me this idea of being focused, I could see that he was super tense. And I said, you seem to be a little bit tense when you talk about work and you talk about being focused. And he went, yeah, you've got to be super focused. And that triggered me to sort of see that he might have this idea of focus slightly confused with something else. His face was just one of tension and seriousness in general. And then he shows me his phone, and he shows me the front of his phone, and he had like a black and white picture of the word focus on it, and again just super serious and super heavy. And I said, I think that you might have this idea of focus confused with force, and that is not really serving you very well. And he said, I don't understand. I said, okay, let's see whether or not we can find a parallel. And I asked him to tell me about, what are the things in his life that he really enjoys, like the things that he enjoys the most, and the things that he's really good at outside of work. And what he said was that he's really good at football. He loves football, and he's always been good at football, and that he can't play so much now, but when he was younger he used to play a lot of football. And I said, well, tell me about that. What was it that you enjoyed about it? How did you feel? And he was explaining how it used to be so much fun, and how when he was playing football he would never feel stressed, and he would always feel relaxed, and how it allowed him to get into a place mentally where he just felt completely free. And when he was really playing at his best, he said he just felt completely at one with everyone on the pitch, and it was just this state of flow. Give me a 2 in the comments if anyone can relate to this state of flow that you get when you're doing something that you really enjoy, whether it's a sport or a hobby, or even your work in the world. That when we get into that space, that everything just seems to be seamless. And anyway, hi Gemma. So this space of seamlessness and flow is really what we're all trying to get to. However, most of the time we don't get there in our professional careers because we don't approach them in the same way as we do the things that we really enjoy. We take them and use them like a sort of beaten rod, and beat ourselves up when we're not doing things that we want to do while we're at work. We kind of shame ourselves into action, because you'll never hear a sports coach shaming someone into performing better. You'll never hear that. You'll never hear any kids on the school ground getting shouted at by their coach, telling them how terrible they are at the game to try and make them play better. That won't happen. But if you listen inside your own mind when you're at work and you're not performing as well as you'd like to, you will hear something different. What you'll hear is a lot of shaming and a lot of belittling and just generally being really hard on yourself. And I can vouch for this because my inner voice, when it gets going, is pretty tough. And I certainly wouldn't want anyone else to hear it. And so this is what was essentially going on for my client, and he didn't realize it. But what I asked him was, have you ever played football with the same level of intensity and this idea of focus like you do at work? Have you ever been really serious playing football? How did it go when you've done that? And he told me about the time when he was playing football and he was just really pissed off because he'd injured himself and he couldn't play at his best. And basically, no worries, Gemma. And basically what he said was that when he was playing football this one time and he was really serious, that he ended up causing an injury to himself. He really hurt himself, damaged his knee, and that basically took him out of playing football professionally for the rest of his life. He couldn't play anymore properly. It really made a big impact on his life. And so I let that sink in for a little while, and then we came back to the context of how he was showing up at work and his ability to perform well at work. And he kind of realized that he'd been attempting to perform well at work using the same approach that he did that day playing football, being super serious. And he was just really stiff and not able to do much at all. It was just off on, and a really difficult experience for him. And I don't know if you guys have ever had anything like this, but when we put extra pressure on ourselves to try and perform, and we do it in a way that is serious, we actually start slowing down, and we start using words on ourselves like we should be trying harder, I should be doing better. We start comparing ourselves to other people, and the whole process just grinds to an absolute halt. Hi, Rebecca. And so when this happens and our flow grinds to a halt, we usually start trying even harder. And what that means is we start becoming even more serious, and we start forcing ourselves to do things from this place of seriousness and tension, and we're just stop-start all the way. And it really doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be that way, because it's not the way it's supposed to be. And when I introduced this idea to my client and he realized that he could play the game of life, he could play his role as a salesperson in the same way he played football, that he could essentially bring that sense of playfulness and flow into his work world and enjoy the process. And so we found a way for him to be able to do that. We found a way for him to be able to relax into selling, and it was just this idea of one person at a time, and kind of inviting them into a phone call, like the way you would invite someone in to have a chat if you were just having a nice relaxing bathe in the sauna in a health spa, and you're just having a chat with someone and you're just nice and relaxed. And I said, invite them in and have a nice relaxing chat and see if that makes a difference. And what happened was, as he did that, each call became more relaxing for him, and he just slowly started to enjoy the process, and it became something that he could look forward to rather than something that he had to dread. So if any of you guys have been able to make this kind of transition for yourself, where you've been up against something, you've been really stiff and tense and worried and nervous, and then decided to go, kind of, fuck it, let's bring some playfulness in and treat it like a game. Give me a 3 in the comments if you guys have ever done anything like this. And give me a 4 in the comments if you would like to learn how to. And so the moral of the story being, what happens when we are able to recognize what it looks like for us to be at our best. And it's always a sense of playfulness. It's always a sense of fun and enjoyment. Because here's the thing. We enjoy the things that we're good at. And we're always good at the things that we enjoy. And so it really does make sense to prioritize feeling good and bringing that sense of playfulness to the things that are important in our world, especially things like our career, because it allows us to increase our performance in the same way we increase our performance when we're really diving into a good game. We get more present when we are enjoying the process than we do when we're judging the process and judging ourselves and shaming ourselves and being really tough and hard on ourselves. So this is the distinction between focus and force, because this focus is what happens when we're in flow. When we're in flow, we're just focused and we're in the present moment, and there's no distractions, and we're just right there, and there's nothing else going on in our mind other than what's right in front of us. And that's really the key to performance right there. The moment we get into the present moment, and Lewis is live with us now. Lewis was one of my clients, and he was just sharing with me yesterday how when he got into the state of flow when he was doing his work, that it felt really relaxed, but he was able to just create exponential results. And this is always true, and you know, I've been guilty of being someone that has forced my way through pretty much everything in life, and always been up against challenges because of him. And it's not that things are easier, it's just that we take things more lightheartedly, and we are more graceful with the highs and the lows, and that in and of itself is really what makes the difference, is because as the challenges come in and they present themselves, we don't judge them, we just deal with them. Versus when we're forcing things, we're already in judgment when we're forcing things. This is the key to understand, that when we're forcing stuff, we're already judging ourselves. We're already in that should mentality, and we're giving ourselves a really hard time. So when a challenge comes in and we're already judging ourselves and we're already shoulding on ourselves, then we just start judging the next challenge, and we basically say, this is happening because I'm not good enough. And then it gets worse, and we start to grind to a complete halt. Versus when we're in a more flow state and we've just got this gentle focus and we're dealing with things one thing at a time, that allows us to just bring it in and just deal with that challenge and then move on. And that's the key here. That's the sort of internal process that goes on. So I would love for you guys to give me some feedback on this. You know, have you got any moments in your life when you've definitely felt like you've been in force, or any moments when you've definitely felt like you've been in flow? What were they? You know, and how did that show up for you? And so, you know, just to finish up, this idea of recognizing the difference and the distinction between force and focus is really key to, one, feeling happier, because when we're focused, we are always happy, because focus is another word for being present. And we're always happy when we're present. We're always happy when we're in the present moment and we're not thinking about the past or the future or judging ourselves. That's where happiness lives. And so you'll really be able to know the difference of whether you're in force or whether you're in focus by your sense of well-being and happiness. You know, if you feel like you're really up against it and you're tense, then you are 100% in force. If you are feeling relaxed and calm and present, then you're 100% in focus. And we can drift in and out of these two places, but it's about having discernment about what it feels like when we are drifting in and out of these places, so that we can know whether we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction with the way that we're thinking and the way that we're processing the challenges and the things that we're up against in our life.